Hi, I'm Lindsey,
And I'm Connor.
and I promise this is interesting.
What do you have for us today, Lindsay?
Okay, when I say the word gabagool, what comes to your mind?
The Sopranos is the immediate thing that comes to my mind.
We are working our way through The Sopranos as we speak.
We are, yeah.
We're solidly in, not episode 2, season 2.
Season 2.
So things are heating up or getting spicy. So today I'm here to talk about witness protection.
Witness protection.
Yeah, I've titled this Salacious Secrets and Mayhem in the Mob.
Of course you gave it a title.
Because I can't help myself. So witness protection, let's just talk about what the very basics of it is. Witness protection is a staple in films, television, and now, thank God, social media. It is, at its most harmless, a punchline, and at its most confusing, a hyperbolic extreme meant to elucidate fear, respect, or to instill an unearned sense of power, all of which we will be discussing today.
Okay.
So let's talk about the stone cold facts of witness protection. What do you know about witness protection, Connor Angus?
So what I know about witness protection mostly comes from watching Martin Scorsese movies.
Right.
It's usually used for the name itself, witness protection, is to protect witnesses of crimes where revenge might be taken against them.
Exactamundo.
Right.
You were right on. The United States Federal Witness Protection Program, that is its official name, aka the Witness Security Program, aka witsec, which is how I'm going to be, that's how I'm going to be referring to it because it's short and sweet.
Okay.
It's a program operated by what branch of the United States government do you think?
You know, I'm going to say the Secret Service just because they tend to do everything.
The Marshal's Office.
The Marshal's Office, really?
It's the Marshal Service, designed to protect threatened witnesses and their immediate family members. That means, typically, the witnesses themselves, their spouses, their kids, and, in some very special mob-related cases, their girlfriends.
Oh,
which sounds like a real good sitcom.
They're Guma.
They're Guma. Yeah, exactly. When or why was it created? It was formally established in 1970, but its roots date back to 1961, when the acting attorney general sought to counterweight the mob's ability to murder potential witnesses and the retaliation against their families. Who was the attorney general in 1961?
Was it a Kennedy of some kind?
It was Robert F. Kennedy,
It was
aka
Robert F. Kennedy.
my boy Bobby. Okay, we don't know this yet because we're just introducing ourselves publicly. I'm a big Bobby Kennedy fan.
You are a big Bobby Kennedy fan.
I think we did so wrong by this boy. So this is interesting. This was one of the first rabbit holes I went down because I saw Bobby Kennedy was turning on members of the mob, and my entire educated life, I thought that Joe Kennedy, his father, was involved with the mob.
Okay.
Because mobsters themselves came forward years later after they had deferred to the U.S. government.
After they'd used the witness protection program.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They were like, oh yeah, like Joe Kennedy used to come in all the time and make deals with the big boss. Their big witness for this rumor, by the way, was Al Capone's piano tuner. So I'm shocked that even made it into a textbook in Texas.
What a house of cards we build.
Yeah. So there are rumors that Joe Kennedy, the poisonous little patriarch of the Kennedy clan, was a bootlegger during the Prohibition era, but those claims are totally unsubstantiated. One, his father was a wealthy and powerful businessman. He owned 2 banks. So even through the Depression, the family was more than afloat.
Truly like the Medicis of America.
Yes.
Yeah.
And also, Joseph Kennedy was really good at insider trading. That's where he made millions and millions of dollars.
You and I love to talk about this.
By the way, insider trading was not illegal at this time. It only became illegal when he was named chairman of the Securities and Exchange Commission under Roosevelt and decided he didn't want anybody else to become rich that way.
So you're telling me that he became the chairman of the SEC
Mm-hmm.
and
First chairman ever.
Used insider trading to grow his personal wealth.
Yes.
And then made insider trading illegal.
Yes. He manipulated the market in his favor and in his friend's favor, and he did it to gain political power.
It would be a very easy thing to do if you're the chairman of the SEC.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And if you already have millions of dollars to throw around. So, anyway.
Which it's important to mention, in America, the SEC is the Security Exchange Commission.
Yes.
Which
sounds like a whole lot of nothing.
Right, but it's in charge of regulating like the stock market, basically. Yeah.
But that's not a real job. Go to welding school, like for real, these men. So needless to say, Joe Kennedy did not bootleg liquor during the Prohibition. He was not affiliated with the mafia in any way, shape, or form that can be substantiated. That was for the dirty Irish people.
Right. But he did insider trade.
He did insider trade.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyway, the American mafia's power peaked in the 40s and 50s, and after that, it started to decline.
Okay.
And there are a lot of reasons for this. The drugs got involved. which we saw in Godfather 2. Internal disputes saw those higher in rank fall from grace and get whacked,
Okay.
as also seen
In The Sopranos.
The Godfather and
In
The
The
Sopranos,
Godfather
and
and
in
The Sopranos,
every
yeah.
Italian mafia movie ever.
Yeah.
Prison sentences got longer, and a lot of people started defecting.
Oh, interesting.
in
So
Goodfellas.
they would get convicted and then fly the coop.
Yeah, they would get caught, and then they would turn on everybody to get
Yeah.
lighter sentences.
Or like they would go out on bail and then just disappear.
Yeah, because there
Yeah.
was a time in the 40s and 50s where the mafia had bought off local law enforcement
Mm-hmm.
and also at some point worked their way up to gain political power.
Right.
So there was no risk of retribution.
Truly like
at
a
all.
Gotham,
Yeah.
Gotham City.
You
kind
get
of thing.
caught, like, if you shot a police chief in broad daylight in Midtown, you'd have to go to jail. But even then, they made it real comfy for you.
This is a funny thing that I learned because I've watched some content creators that got caught on this. The reason that
What?
listen to this. So federally, what the FBI handles like firearms cases and things like
Mhm.
that, and drug cases.
hmm
And federally, it's still illegal to have, in America, it's illegal to have possession of marijuana. It's still a federal crime. But the thing that the feds will usually get a lot of these guys on, it's not just the possession of firearms. It's not just the possession of marijuana or cocaine. It's the possession of both.
hmm
It's like the possession of having both things is a much harder sentence.
That is a really beautiful segue, actually, because now we're going to talk about the RICO Act.
The RICO Act.
Yes,
Okay.
it stands for the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations, RICO, of 1970.
RICO. So RICO.
RICO.
Okay.
And that really put the nail in the coffin because RICO allows prosecutors to tie together crimes that seem totally unrelated, but they make it into a pattern of racketeering,
Oh, interesting.
which is how the mafia operated for decades.
right, because they do a bunch of seemingly unrelated crimes.
Right, like you get
Yeah.
caught for bribery, but that doesn't mean you're racketeering.
Mhm.
You get caught with some consumer violations. That's not racketeering.
Right.
But, prosecutors know that's what you're doing. They just couldn't prove it
right,
until the
exactly.
RICO Act.
They had no way of actually proving it. Yeah.
Exactamundo. There's an important point. Mafia peaked 40s and 50s, and then in the 60s and the 70s, things really started to decline because people started getting murdered, people started going to prison, and I think most imperatively, Sicilian and Italian immigrants were no longer the most hated ethnic group.
I'm going to guess it was probably the Jewish people who
No.
moved to America during World War II.
No.
No.
That's where my mind went too.
Okay.
But that hatred moved over to the Chinese and black people.
God, America really only has a couple of notes it plays, doesn't it?
We just keep circling around. It's like we're going to hate somebody else for a while and then we're just going to go right back to black people.
So why was it specifically Chinese immigrants who were coming to America?
The Korean War changed a lot of attitudes towards Asian Americans. So it wasn't just an attitude towards Chinese immigrants, it was towards Chinese people who had been living here for a long time. And suddenly there was this huge pressure to prove that you were loyal not to China, not to any other Asian entity, but to the United States.
Interesting. Oh, that's right, because the Korean War really was kind of a proxy war with China,
Exactly.
right? Because
and with communism.
right, because
yes.
China was kind of propping up North Korea,
Yes.
which is what we were fighting against.
Right.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is not just some rude tweets, not to diminish the rude tweets of today, but there was lynchings, there were people's houses were getting burned down.
Right. Americans, after, like, it's been a long time since we've tarred and feathered people, but that
Yeah, we
used to
got
be
tired.
We used to be a pretty common thing that we would do.
Yeah, I think we're just dormant.
A little bit.
We're
yeah.
just waiting for like a new group to hate. And I vote CEOs of health insurance companies. Let's get back to our roots. Okay, so all of that happening, it's already going on with the mob already struggling to stand on its one teeny tiny peg leg. The RICO Act really put the nail in the coffin. And right around this time is also when the Witness Protection Program was created.
Okay.
The RICO Act came out in 1970, and the Witness Protection Program was invented in the 1970s.
Interesting. So they basically wanted to give people an avenue for, hey, you can tell on people and we'll keep you safe.
Yeah. And this was actually like something that tipped me off about Bobby Kennedy. I was like, wow, you seem to know a lot about how the mob operates for someone who is not involved with the mob and who is also friends with Frank Sinatra. I kind of want the Kennedys to be involved with the mob. Like, I want that story so badly.
I mean, that is kind of the American mythos of the Kennedy family. Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Is like just this suave, hot Navy sailor
Right.
hanging out with Frank Sinatra and then also getting guys whacked in Brooklyn.
Well, and
Oh,
I know you said that
fascinating.
there's nothing to connect the Kennedy family to bootlegging, but
Nothing.
that is the American mythos, is that the Kennedys were
Yes.
bootleggers, and that's how
Right.
they made their money.
And
right?
also, I think that earned them a lot more points when they were entering politics, as people were like, hey, that's what my family had to do.
Right.
No. His father owned 2 banks.
Yeah, he was a banker.
Which is
not cool. Nobody likes bankers.
No.
Shout out to the bankers.
No shout out to the bankers. You stay over there. Nobody wants you.
Yeah, but it's just, I wonder if that's one of those things where like they heard it and then they just didn't really correct it. You know what I mean? Because it kind of earned them some street cred.
Yeah, it did, exactly. They're like, we were... Okay. But there was an interview with Joseph Kennedy's biographer, and History.com had an interview with him, and they asked him, like, was he involved with bootlegging? Like, was he involved with the mafia? And he was like, I wanted him to be so badly. Can you imagine how juicy that biography? That would sell like hotcakes.
Right.
I could not find a single substantiated claim. The only thing is like Sammy shoot you in the kneecaps Gravano said that he saw Joe Kennedy go into the bank that John Gotti was in one time.
Interesting.
And that's what ties him to the mob. Like, if he was involved with the mob, he hit it super well. That's kind of the general overview of the Witness Protection Program.
Okay.
Since its inception, witsec has safeguarded over 8,600 witnesses and 9,900 family members.
Oh my gosh.
It's a lot more people than I thought, because it's extremely selective. It's very difficult to qualify for witsec.
Yeah, I wonder what the qualifications actually are.
We're going to talk about that.
Okay, great.
So how does witsec work? It's a lot of paperwork.
Of course.
It's
it always is.
so much paperwork.
When you involve the government, you invite paperwork.
I can't believe how much paperwork goes into this. You're going to be disgusted. Okay, so a state or federal law enforcement agency submits a request for protection to the marshal's office, and then an application is submitted to the Department of Justice.
Okay.
And this application has to include the testimony that's going to be provided, the threat to the witness, and, interestingly, any risk the witness may pose to a new community if relocated.
Oh, fascinating.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Okay, so let me get this straight. So I'm a mob informant, right? I go to my local FBI office or police office.
Unlikely.
And I say, hey, I want to inform on the mob. I want to be protected. And they go, great. They call up the marshal's office, and then they have to file a bunch of paperwork to prove that I am who I say I am in danger of being killed, and that I probably won't cause a ton of problems if I move to somewhere else.
Yes. They also need to prove that your testimony is going to put people away.
Interesting. So it's a bit of a quid pro quo.
It is.
Yeah.
It's like that testimony makes or breaks the case.
Yeah.
And that's why the creator, like kind of the founding father of witsec, his name is Gerald Schur. We're going to talk about him in a little bit. But he said in his book that he published in 2002 about witsec, 90% of the guys who participate in witness protection are active criminals themselves.
Interesting.
Very few random Americans, totally innocent, witness a mob hit in a public parking lot and then have to go into witness protection.
Right.
It's like you've been participating and you have insider knowledge, and you are going to put a lot of really dangerous people away, and therefore you're more valuable as an informant than just another guy in prison. And then there's a prelim interview, and we saw part of this in the movie Goodfellas, where an agent's describing exactly what witness protection entails. It's when he's telling Catherine or Karen that you can't call your mother, and she's like, I gotta call my mother, and he's like, you're never gonna call your mother. That's what the prelim interview is.
Right, because they have to get used to the idea of like, no, your old life is over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They also have to assess if they're a good fit for it, because no doubt there are plenty of people who would totally blab about being like a super secret agent for the federal government.
Right.
And those people are just like left to the wolves. So then who gets final say in whether or not someone enters the program?
Secretary of State.
Attorney General.
The Attorney General, really?
Yeah.
Of the state that they're in?
Of the federal government.
Of the federal government.
Yeah, it's a federally run program. So what's interesting is there's a federally run witness protection program, and there are some select states that run their own witness protection program. But state-run witness protection programs are way less funded. They have way less access to resources. Like you're still probably going to be within the state, which doesn't do you a whole lot of good. Like particularly if you're in New York and you're trying to get away from New York mobsters, good luck.
Right. And Alaska is one that works for it, right? Because maybe you're down in Juneau, and then you just go up to the North Pole. Basically.
Yeah. So the federal program is where it's at for once. A fun fact, if a witness has debt, all of that debt must be paid off before they participate in the program.
Wow.
You do not get away from your debt, even if you're in witness fucking protection.
Amazing.
Do you know why that is?
Why is that?
Because debt collectors will come after you and ruin your anonymity. Because
So
when
the feds
people
can't
really
even
want
tell
money, they
them.
find you.
Yeah.
No, they will find you.
Right.
Yeah.
That is incredible.
Isn't that great? That's so awful.
Because you know that was like, that wasn't a rule at first. And
No.
then some bank somewhere came knocking on a door and blew up a whole operation.
Yeah. And the government was like, okay,
Why didn't we think about this? Yeah.
Which, can you imagine? You're turning on the mob.
Mm-hmm.
You are defecting.
Right.
You're putting yourself and your wife and your children in danger. You qualify for witness protection. The Attorney General says, yes, attaboy, let's get you to Wisconsin to start your new life.
Mm-hmm.
And debt collectors are like, no, you owe us $300,000 first. What do you do? What do you mean?
That's tough.
I gotta go.
That's tough.
I'm gonna get murdered and no one's gonna get any money. What are you talking about? So, okay. Attorney General says yes. Let's say this witness gets a yes from the Attorney General.
Okay.
After that point, the witness is transported via armored car like he's Joe Alwyn at a Taylor Swift meet and greet to the witsec safe site. No one has any clue where this safe site is. It's probably located somewhere outside of DC, but nobody knows.
There's only one safe site.
There's one safe site outside of DC, we think. And the site is built in such a way that up to 6 families can reside there at the same time, and none of them will ever interact with each other.
Interesting. And it's kind of like a holding ground for people who are in the program?
No. Well, kind of, yeah. So the only people on the planet who know that they're there are the guards in charge of protecting them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I guess like the driver of the armored car,
Right.
who I hope was not found on just Indeed.
Yeah.
Because if he's anything like me, he's blabbing immediately.
Yeah. What does an Indeed job posting look like for the driver of the armored car?
How do you even qualify for that gig? Like, do you even know that that's the gig, or do you just show up one day and Ray Liotta's in your backseat and you're like, oh my God, I'm in danger. I don't want this job anymore. So the center is for the witnesses. They're going to undergo medical, dental, and psychological testing.
Interesting.
And this can take up to like 6 weeks. Adults are also interviewed about their job skills, so a new job can be found that involves their skills, which I think it would be upsettingly easy to spot a witsec member if plumbers had to like be yoga instructors on Saturdays.
Right.
You'd be like, that guy's in witness protection. He's not in the right place. Also, if you have lived in a city your whole life, they're going to move you to another city. They're not going to put you in the country. You
Thank
have
God.
to be able to
Oh my
blend
gosh.
in.
Yes,
Yeah.
it would suffer at that.
Exactly. So next, guess what happens?
After they've been psychologically evaluated?
6 weeks, they're being interviewed. They're asking all these questions. They're getting medical tested. Their teeth are being looked at. What happens next?
They pull a number out of a hat to determine where they go.
No, there's more paperwork. Guess why? This is bureaucracy. It does not matter how interesting it is. It's really just like the DMV.
Right.
No matter what you are doing, you are at the DMV.
Which, like, who's the paperwork for? Is my
The
question.
Marshal Service
Right.
and the federal government, I guess.
Who's going to audit them for witness protection?
Well, we're going to talk about that
Oh boy.
in a hot minute. Okay, so the witness and any participating family members, they sign a memorandum of understanding, an MOU, a MOU. This is just outlining, these are the rules of witness protection. These are the services we're offering. Do you understand what is happening right now?
I see.
And you sign that. It's
So they're
basically
still
Miranda
technically
rights.
not even in the program yet
No.
at this point.
They're still being evaluated, and this evaluation process can go on for a long time.
So they could get tossed back into the wild.
Not necessarily. At this point, if the Attorney General has given you the go-ahead, you're in the program. It's just we don't know where we're putting you yet.
I see.
You're
I
like
see.
basically staying in a super safe motel.
Right. You're in a holding pattern until we figure out where to
Exactly.
put you.
Which sounds like a nightmare. Like that's an apocalypse.
That's the
bunker
worst
movie.
Airbnb in America.
It truly,
Yeah.
but I feel like you're sleeping on a cardboard box. Like in my mind, you're sleeping on concrete, or like on one of those metal toilets you see.
It's
in
probably
jails.
not a California king. No.
No, I don't think so. Unless the whole family is sleeping on that king together
Right.
to bond. So then after they sign all that paperwork, in the early days of witsec, the program would pay for plastic surgery.
Really?
Yes.
Plastic surgery.
Yeah, we have a few ridiculous, incredible examples of this. So mobster Aladina Fratiano. No one makes a last name like the Italians.
They really don't.
By the way,
They really don't.
this is such a tangent. We can cut this. But my friend Federica is a playwright and a director in New York, and she's Italian. She grew up in Milan, and she wrote this short play a few years ago kind of about the Italian language. The main character is Italian and he's falling in love and he's like, just spouting this love and he's like, perfect. I hate that word. It ends with a, it's so like hard. It like ends in a knife. It cuts you. You're describing something that's beautiful, that's lovely, that doesn't need to be changed. It's not perfect. It's perfetto. I think about that every day of my life. Mobster Aladina Fratiano was enticed to testify because the Marshal Service offered to pay for his wife's facelift and boob job. Taxpayers paid for that.
Right, because it's all one line item, which is plastic surgery.
And look, was it worth it? It probably got some mobsters off the street. If you're like me and kind of pro-mob, maybe not worth it. But if you're the guy getting hit with a bat, probably worth it.
Probably worth it, yeah.
So it's very hard to say. Another unnamed participant, which I don't think you get to be unnamed here, but okay. An unnamed participant was given a psychologist suggested penis surgery.
Excuse me?
He got his penis enlarged with taxpayer dollars. Why? Because, not to disguise him, but because he was depressed and needed a self-esteem boost in order to testify.
Oh, well, thank God. Thank God
This
we
is in
helped
court
him.
documents.
I would hope he didn't get it to blend in.
Imagine going to Harvard and this is your first gig. You're like, I'm on the penis trial. This is incredible. This was outlawed in the 90s. Thank you, George H.W. or Clinton. I'm not sure.
Us paying for the plastic surgery.
Yeah, they were like,
for
we're not
mobsters.
doing that anymore.
This really goes to show like how far-reaching the office of the president can get.
Not crazy.
Like,
I know.
Imagine having to sign paperwork for the witness protection program.
With everything else you're doing.
With everything else you're doing.
Also, I have to tell my agencies not to pay for penis enlargement surgeries under any circumstance.
What are we doing?
What are we doing? I gotta go kiss babies in Delaware.
I gotta go play golf.
Get fucked.
With the Shah of Iran. Yeah.
I gotta FaceTime my wife and talk about nothing. Okay, next we have to decide where we're gonna send the guy. How do you think his new home is chosen?
I'm gonna guess Wheel of Fortune style.
No, take one more guess.
Geographically the furthest away place that they can live from the place that they were operating.
Very smart, but no. An agent interviews the witness and asks him where he would like to go. And the program picks literally the opposite of that.
Hilarious. Hilarious, because the mob would be able to know, oh, this guy wants to go to Florida. That's probably where he ran to.
That's the idea. Gerald Schur, again, founding father of witsec, said, if you're willing to tell me where you like to go, what kind of weather you like, if you like to hike, if you like to be on the beach, you've definitely told other people close to you that, and no one can find you.
I'm a Fed, and you told me that.
Yeah. So we're going to send you to the opposite of that.
Hilarious. That's a really smart way to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you hate the cold and love to go for long walks on the beach, they're sending you to Kodak, Alaska, and you will never see a beach again in your whole life.
Well, it'll be a beach. Just be a beach covered in ice and pebbles.
Yeah, have fun. So our witness now has zero control over where he's going to be living, but he does get to pick his new name.
Oh, fun.
This
Okay.
is fun, yeah. So Gerald Schur, our old friend who's making all of the decisions, always recommended the witnesses keep either their first name entirely or at least keep the same initials, because you, for example, are more likely to respond to Colin than to like Jedediah.
Yeah, that's totally right. Because you can't, the thing is, you don't want to cue off anybody in the new thing. Right. Oh, this Italian man moved to our fishing village in Alaska. But
that's interesting because also the last name has to be completely unrelated to you or anyone you've ever known. But it also has to make sense ethnically.
Right. You can't give an Irishman a Greek last name.
Exactly. Okay, so now there's more paperwork and there's a lot of it this time. Witnesses need new everything. You get new birth certificates, driving licenses, social security cards, school records. Anything and everything a new person needs to function in this American underworld.
Interesting. So here's my question to that. Do they go through the legal channels to get that done? And if so, they're probably trying to keep it secret, right?
Yes.
So if I'm working for the Marshal Services, I don't call up the DMV and say, hey, I've got some witnesses. I need to make some new fake birth certificates.
No. Now, I'm not entirely sure how a birth certificate is actually created, like how many agencies that goes through, or if the Marshal Services is like responsible for
right,
creating
if they have a
it.
printer that does it. Yeah.
Exactly. And they don't even have to talk to anybody
That'd
about
be
it.
the smartest way to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Just keep it all in-house. Because, yeah, you don't want to defraud your own federal government.
No, it's
Right.
super tight. Very few federal agents know how witness protection operates, like where they're operating, where their witnesses are.
Right. Who
It's
the
very
agents
difficult.
are.
Exactly. So, fun fact. Parents in the early days of witsec wanted their kids' school records to be improved, but Gerald Schur refused to do that.
They wanted their school records improved
Yeah,
so you
like,
go to a
"Can
better
you-"
university.
Yeah, exactly. As Keke Palmer would say, I don't know this man. If he walked by me on the street, I wouldn't know a thing. But I like this guy, Gerald Schur. Big fan of him. Witnesses are also given a stipend. So the number I keep seeing is $60,000.
A year?
No. For like a 3-month period.
$60,000 for 3 months?
Yeah, that's
Oh
the
my
number I
gosh.
kept seeing. Yeah. But in Schur's day, it was based on the cost of living in the place of relocation.
Okay.
So who knows? The program as a whole costs $10 million total every year.
Mhm.
So somewhere a very savvy CPA is doing the Lord's work, but it's not me. So I don't know how much money everybody gets.
Some bean counter somewhere is keeping track of everybody's
Yes.
expenses. Yeah.
So all of this is taking place at the safe site. We are still at the safe
Oh,
site
wow. We still haven't
outside
even
of
left.
DC. Yeah,
Gotcha.
we haven't left yet. Finally, after about 6 weeks, our witness is ready to start his new life in rural Alaska. Armored car comes back, takes him to the airport.
Uh-huh.
He flies there. Once he gets there, marshals pick him up and take him to a temporary apartment or a motel while his belongings are being packed and stashed and moved to rural Alaska. How do they move his property? witsec will use up to 3 different moving companies to throw off any potential hitmen who are watching the house.
Oh, wow.
So they give all 3 different companies different things to take and different addresses. And at some point, all the things end up where they're supposed to, but that can take a long time.
Right. Because
And that's why they put them up in an apartment.
Like they have 3 different moving companies based out of New York.
Yeah.
One of them's going to move it to Hoboken. One of them's going to move it to Florida. One of them's going to move it to Chicago.
Yeah.
And then they might go through another move. And then eventually it all ends up in Alaska.
Exactly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I know.
This is so complex. Why didn't anybody tell me this? I would have joined the marshals. This
It's
sounds
so
cool.
interesting. Okay, so now we're in the new town, and witsec touches base with local law enforcement and lets them know, hey, there's a new criminal in town, but he's chill.
Gotcha.
I don't know how that conversation goes. This is like the closest analogy I could find.
So they tell local law enforcement.
Yeah.
Wow.
I don't know. Like, I imagine it's just the marshal service showing up and being like, hey, this guy is testifying for us. We're familiar with him. We're working with him on a case right now.
Mhm.
He's cool, though.
Keep them safe.
Yeah. Like,
See,
I don't know what that
To me,
conversation
that would be like
looks
the breach of like, not trust, but that would be the people you wouldn't want to tell.
Yeah. But
Well-
I think if you have a new especially if you're in a smaller community, maybe not so much if you're in Chicago or Detroit or Hoboken, but if you're in a tiny rural town,
Mhm.
you probably want to touch base with local law enforcement.
Right, just to
and
make
say,
sure.
hey.
Because they probably know who is moving in and when, right? Do you have any stats on like what groups use witness protection the most? Is it mostly Italian, ex-Italian mob? Is it ex-Irish? Is it ex-Russian?
So the root of witsec is obviously an organized crime.
Right.
And so in the 70s and the 80s, even in the 90s, that mostly meant Italian mafia.
Italian.
For sure.
Because they ran everything.
Right.
Yeah.
Nowadays, it has expanded into MS-13.
Oh, interesting.
There are a lot of people
Okay.
who defect on MS-13 and then have
Mhm.
to be hidden. But organized crime is people who defect against mobs or gangs make the most sense to qualify for the program because the height of retaliation is so high.
Right.
It's so likely
Right, the
that somebody's
cartel-
going to come after you.
Right. The cartel has assassins on payroll. Like
Yeah.
we know this. Yeah.
Right. They
That
come
makes
after
sense.
you.
I didn't even think that the cartel would be the modern version of people who would be
Yeah.
using witness protection.
Right. It's the
Yeah.
closest thing we have. So there's actually, weirdly enough, there's a Wikipedia page of people who have participated in witness protection. Obviously, they're not all on there. It's only a selection of like 25 people. I think most of them have died by now.
Yeah, imagine Wikipedia blowing your cover.
Yeah, it's like, what the fuck? I moved to Alaska for nothing. I could have just stayed in Hoboken. Okay. So we're still in town. Touch base with local law enforcement. They say, hey, this guy used to racketeer, but he's cool now. They also find him a job. It will not be exciting.
No.
It will be at the Cinnabon in the local mall. or it will be at Petco. It will
Right.
be miserable.
Working the cash register.
Yeah, 9 to 5. And that stipend also starts to drip, drip, drip because
Mhm.
it will get cut off if someone's not actively looking for a job.
Oh,
You have to at
interesting.
least prove that you're looking for a job in town
So
if the Marshal Service couldn't find you one.
I see.
Yeah.
So you're working as a cashier at Petco, but you're making $60,000 like every couple of months.
I think that stipend has a time limit on it. I think the timeline is 3 months max. And in this time,
Oh, I see what you're saying.
yeah, a marshal is touching base with you, being like, "How's the job hunt going? How are you moved in?"
Right. So they use that money to get set up, and then they
Yes.
don't get paid again. They're kind of become
Yeah.
self-sufficient.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. There might be a situation where you could apply for a stipend with witsec, but I haven't found any case of that.
Okay.
That might be secret.
Gotcha.
Okay, every witsec witness is assigned their own personal U.S. Marshal that they have to touch base with once a year the entire time they're in the program.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. I imagine it's part of the carrier's job to step in and say, like, hey, lay off the Funyuns. Like, you're going to get your 9 to 5 at Petco
Right.
right now. And also just to make sure that they're not sweeping back into crime.
Right. Because I imagine that could be a very common situation.
It's not uncommon.
Yeah.
I read Gerald Schur. Again, this is all pretty dated information. This is going back to 2002 when he published this book.
Okay.
So take it with a grain of salt. But he said about 19 to 20% of people who participate in witness protection commit some kind of crime while they are in witness protection.
In their new home.
Yeah.
In their new place of home.
Yeah. There's actually a case that I think this happened in the 80s, right after the program was set up. So like there were a lot of holes in the plan.
Right.
But like these two guys were in the mafia and they were both in witness protection and they ended up like in like 2 towns over and they met up and started selling drugs. Like they can't.
People just can't help it.
Once you know what? You do a job for 40 years, that's what you know how to do.
Yeah.
You don't know how to work at the Cinnabon. You're like, this is boring. I am dying every minute. Importantly, this marshal is not going to be in town year round. You do not get a 24/7, 7 days a week security detail while you're in witness
Right.
protection.
You're kind of in charge of your own thing at
Yeah,
this point.
because this goes on for your whole life, maybe. You could be in
Right.
witness protection for decades. And so we can't have a security detail following you around. That kind of defeats the whole purpose of blending in. Like
Mhm.
now it looks like the president's coming to town every time you're going to the post office. So at this point, our boy is set up in Alaska.
Gotcha. He's got
Got
a job.
Got a cozy
He's
shack
got
on the
enough money
outskirts.
to kind of live on.
Yeah,
His family's set up. They were going to school now. His wife has plastic surgery. Yeah.
exactly. You can't recognize her. Her boobs are so big. And at this point, it's really up to the witness himself to just keep it cool. And that's kind of what the year checkup is for, too.
I see.
It's to be like, how are you doing?
Right.
Not being yourself.
Right. Exactly. Because I imagine that does have to take a psychological toll on you a little bit.
Yes.
Right. Which maybe if you were in the business of, having people whacked, like that's the least of their concern is the psychological toll that not being yourself is. But
Yeah. So surprisingly, witnesses can contact family members when they're in witsec.
really,
Yes. There's a secure mail program. They just can't keep any of the letters that they receive. The marshals take them.
oh, I see. So Marshall shows up and hands the family member the letter.
Yep.
And they go,
You
read
read it.
this.
And they take it away.
Thank you very much. We'll see you in 6 months when they write you again.
And there's also, you can make phone calls, but it has to be on a secure line that the marshal service sets up.
Hmm.
But
And I
you
imagine they
can call
monitor
your
it as well.
family. Yeah.
Yeah.
So like there have been a couple of cases. There was one case specifically that I read about where someone's family had to believe they were dead, even though they were in witsec,
Oh,
at
interesting.
least for like the initial time in between arresting everybody involved and the first,
Like convictions.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you can watch like the body cam footage of this family getting the worst news of their life. And then a secure phone line is set up a few months later and they call their mom and they're like, I'm not dead. I'm in Arkansas. And she's like,
Oh my gosh.
what are we doing? It's
I
like
can't even imagine.
another world. I would feel like I got abducted. You kidding me?
That's like that movie, The Changeling, right? With the
Oh my God, that
this-
movie.
Yeah, the mom who has her son taken away, and then another son is given, and it's like, this is not my kid.
She's stronger than me. I would have killed so many people if that was me. Oh, that whole town's going up. So they can send mail. They can talk on a secure phone line. They cannot, under any circumstance, return to their hometown or to the town where they were operating from.
I see.
So if you were operating out of New York, you do not ever return to New York.
Not even on vacation.
Not for vacation.
That's actually a really good question. Can they take vacations? Like, can they go somewhere
Yeah.
else?
You have a job, you're making money, you can take vacation. You do not return to the town where you were operating from,
I
though.
see.
And we're going to figure out why that is.
I imagine there's some people monitoring that.
Right, yes.
Yeah.
So goodbye, Grandma. See you never. I'm at Petco now. So important side quest. This has all been under the assumption that the witness is an American citizen.
Oh my gosh, I didn't even think about that.
right? If you are not a U.S. citizen, the IRS is much more likely to deport a witness than to allow them into witness protection.
Funny.
Yeah. They'll probably just take your testimony and then
Drop you off on
drop
the
you
outside.
off wherever you're from originally. Yeah.
That feels not great.
No, it does not. Also, prisoners can enter a modified version of witsec. It's way worse than the regular witsec.
So they're going to snitch on somebody within prison, basically? Or...
No, they're in prison and they're like, hey, I have proof that so-and-so who's still out is operating and I can tell you exactly what's going to happen.
Gotcha.
So as of 2010, there were about 500 prisoners who were in witsec. There isn't much information on how this works now, but a person would at least receive a name change, so they're no longer able to be easily located.
Mm-hmm.
And in the 90s, it was discovered that certain witnesses like this had received special meals and phone call privileges in exchange for testifying.
Oh, interesting.
So probably looks pretty similar.
Mm-hmm.
It's way less sophisticated and really dangerous. Like, you're truly the definition of a sitting duck if you defect in prison.
Right. That's the thing. That's the difference between like a snitch and a rat, right? It's like,
yeah,
and
I don't know.
Prison doesn't like either.
No, I think that being in prison changes you so much psychologically. I think at some point you're just like, you know what? Fuck all these people. I'm here for life. I'm going to tell everything.
Right.
I'm going to tell everybody everything.
Singing canary. Yeah.
Yeah. So has a case ever gone wrong in witsec?
I'm going to guess yes many times.
No.
Really?
Never.
Never once.
The program has a 100% success rate. Now,
what does that measure?
how can we audit a program that we don't know the location of? We don't know who they're protecting or who's doing the protecting, why, where they are, what they are doing, and how much it is costing. You can't. This number is from the Marshal Service's website.
I see.
So that's like me saying I never dated a loser. You just have to take my word for it. I
Right.
never dated anybody who wasn't nice
it's like
to me.
Kim Jong-un saying, I played golf once and I scored 18 holes in one.
Yes,
Yeah.
it's 72 degrees and sunny here every single day.
Right.
It's a miracle. I don't know how it happens. It just does. There have been some close calls, though.
Okay.
So an audit published in 2005 revealed that two people in the program who knew each other in their previous lives as mafiosos ran into each other at a convenience store in
no
town.
kidding.
And so one of them had to be relocated. Nobody got harmed. Nothing bad came of this, but that was like a huge oversight, which major oversight for an intensely secretive and serious agency. Like, how did that happen?
Right.
At the time, witsec was undergoing budget cuts, and as a result, martial morale was extremely low because pay was low.
You got to watch the martial morale.
No vacation.
I wonder how much a marshal's getting paid too, because imagine being the marshal in charge of like a family that's getting set up in Alaska.
Yeah.
And they're making $60,000 in the next 3 months, and you make $60,000 a year.
Yeah. Also, there was a failure by the service to ensure that employees who work in witsec completed secrecy agreements that forbade them to talk about their work, which, to be honest, sounds like something that should not have to be said out loud. You work for witness protection. What are you doing gabbing to your wife
tell
about
anybody.
who's in it? What are you doing?
Don't tell anybody.
Shut up. Talk about literally anything
We
else.
learned this in World War II. Like, you don't tell anybody what you do.
No.
The Germans will learn. Like,
Figure
they're
it
going to
out.
hear it.
Yes. So, is witness protection forever?
The way you're framing that question, I'm going to
Did
say,
I give it away?
I'm going to say yes. The witness protection is absolutely forever.
Thank you. No, it's 100% voluntary. So you can leave at any time.
Oh, really? Okay.
This track record is a lot more pockmarked
I'm sure.
than people who stay in the program. So there are a couple examples of this. Daniel Lapola, who was in witness protection.
Mhm.
I tried to look into what he was in for. No offense to him or his family. The crime sounded super boring. It was something about like stolen army rifles. I could not
interesting.
care less. But he
Probably,
returned to Connecticut in the 1970s, where he's from, to go to a funeral, and he decided to pop by his old house, which was booby-trapped. And so when he unlocked the door, a bomb went off, and he blew up.
Wow. And how long had he been in witness protection?
A few years.
A few years.
Well, this happened in the 70s, and the program started in 1971. Like, that's when they got their
Mhm.
first round of witnesses. So
So that's interesting. I wonder if somebody saw him come back in town and booby-trapped his house, or if his house had just been booby-trapped for that
if
long.
you're involved with a gang, they know who your family members are.
Right.
So somebody dies, they're like, he's probably going to come back into town.
Yeah.
We're going to booby trap his old house just in case.
That's a really good point. Yeah.
Right? Like, we had to at some point learn that hitmen watch the house
Right.
and will follow the moving company. I don't think we just knew that. I think somebody got almost whacked
that's the
for us
thing.
to learn that.
What's the saying? It's like every warning sign has a tragic accident that happened
Yes,
that made that warning sign
exactly.
necessary.
Why can't we go as fast as we should on the roads? Because some fucker went 90 and killed an entire family and fucked it up for all of us.
Exactly.
Okay, so now there's also Brenda Paz or Paz. I'm not entirely sure how to pronounce her last name. She was a former MS-13 gang member who had been helping a federal murder case against her former boyfriend. She was stabbed to death 2 months after she left the program.
Really?
4 alleged members of the MS-13 gang, including her ex-boyfriend, have been charged with her killing. She was only 17 years old.
Oh, that's brutal.
Yeah. Which leads me into another interesting question is the children who participate in witness protection. It's already a really strange mental game that you have to play as an adult who's lived their entire life as like Kathleen Taylor. For 45 years, I've been Kathleen Taylor, a banker. I'm married to Jim, and we are the Taylors. And now you have to create a whole new identity for yourself. What about the people who grow up in witness protection? It's a totally different experience. There's this woman named Jackie Taylor. She entered witsec when she was only 7 years old because her father, who was associated with Hell's Angels, started defecting in order to get a lighter sentence and started blabbing, and the family was in extreme danger. So they relocated the family to Billings, Montana. They were from Florida originally. So you have to imagine they were like, we like beaches and oceans. And they were like, great, we're sending you to Billings. Which, look, Montana's gorgeous. Billings, despicable.
Well, Montana is gorgeous, but to a Floridian, it's got to be...
It's hell, I'm sure. Yeah, and she talks about it not with fondness.
I'm sure.
She talks about how broken the program is, how little it prepares you, and how damaging it is for children. She also started receiving phone calls from other people who were in witsec, like other children who grew up in witsec when she was a teenager and in her early 20s. She also started receiving calls from news agencies and documentary filmmakers, all of whom wanted to share her story. So, like, how secretive is it actually if you can just call her and be like, hey, I know you're in witsec, me too.
Right.
Are these secure phone lines?
I don't know. Well, you got to think like the kid is probably fine. Like the kid's not under any... Well, no, I can't even say that. The kid would be under threat.
No, I mean, I read this article. I read a couple articles with Jackie, and she was like, it's very strange. I was raised from the time I was 0 to 7. You don't lie. You always tell the truth. And now suddenly I have to like write my new name in a notebook over and over and over again.
That's not your name.
And I can't talk about my dad. And my mom is really stressed and she hates it here. She had siblings who I think were younger than her, and she was kind of tasked with being an older sister and having to like step in and do things that like a little kid shouldn't be responsible for. But she's in an extraneous situation. I don't even know if that's a word. That's how much it stresses me out to think about. So yeah, if you can just call up this woman and be like, hey, you're not who you say you are, and I know that. Do you want to make a movie about it? I just don't know how secretive it actually is. So, okay, another thing that really got me setting off on witness protection is I have been watching a lot of documentaries for no particular reason. We don't have a project booming right now.
It's not that we have a documentary.
I'm not doing research or anything. I'm just watching. I just like documentaries, so I'm just watching a lot of them. But I watch some true crime documentaries, and I am noticing a real trend of catfish using witness protection as a reason as to why they can't get on FaceTime, they can't talk on the phone, they can't come to town and visit you.
I see what you're saying. You're people on dating apps
Yes.
who are not who they actually are.
Right.
Saying that the reason they can't call or FaceTime or meet in person is because they're in witness protection.
Exactly.
Right.
And the reasons always start off perfectly fine. They're like, oh, I'm just out of town for the next 2 weeks, but definitely when I get back, we'll meet up. And then 17 weeks go by and they're like, oh, I can't this week either because I'm working. It's just crazy. And then it's Christmas. And then they run out of excuses. And they're like, actually, I'm in witness protection. I couldn't tell you before because my life was in danger, but it's actually like super dangerous and I'm super important. I'm like an informant.
Right. I'm basically the president.
I'm like basically the Marshal Service, like entirely me, myself, and I.
Right.
So, and just to know, like if you run into anybody online who's telling you that, no, they're not. If they're telling you they're in witness protection, they are not in witness protection.
Good rule for life. If somebody on a dating app is telling you they're a witness and they can't jump on FaceTime,
no,
that's not how that works.
If somebody on a dating app tells you they're good at something, you verify that. I don't even want you believing it. You verify that shit. Oh, you're good at skateboarding? Do it right now.
What's the saying? Trust
but verify. The KGB says that though, and I don't want to support the Russians in any way. So here's the finale. Our old friend, Henry Hill.
Henry Hill from
Goodfellas.
Goodfellas.
Yes.
Absolutely.
He was a protected witness in the 1980s.
Mm-hmm.
His wife and their 2 kids were also in witsec, and they all lived in Redmond, Washington together.
Okay.
That did not stop Henry Hill from getting married under his new identity.
Stop.
He moved in with his new wife, Sherry, and unsurprisingly, his other wife, Karen, found out about this, and the 2 women confronted him together. And somehow he was able to charm his way out of it. Like Sherry, his new wife, did not want to divorce him.
Uh-huh.
She would not end the marriage to him. And Karen wouldn't let go either. So both of them wanted this guy. I don't know.
Why?
I don't know. Maybe he smelled like whipped cream and like it was just too good to get rid of.
Is that attractive to women to smell like whipped cream?
It's attractive to me for sure. Eventually, witsec removed the entire Hill family from the program because they were causing too much chaos.
Okay, hold on. But that sounds like a failure of the program. They didn't catch it in the psyche valve.
Look, he turned in a lot of people.
He did
I
turn
think
in a
Henry
lot
Hill
of
was
people.
very important. And they thought, you know what? You'll go to Washington, you'll retire, you can fish, you will normal out.
Right.
And he did not.
And he did not.
He
Because
kept
some
doing
people
his
just
Henry
don't
Hill
have it
thing.
in them.
No.
Yeah.
And I don't know what happened to him. I don't think he got whacked. I think he...
He's still alive. I
he's
want to say I
okay.
like saw him on a podcast or something.
What?
Like he's doing interviews.
Oh, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that is today's slice of gabagool.
That was a wonderful rabbit hole.
Thank you.
I really enjoyed that.
Did you
Witness
enjoy it?
protection. That's so interesting.
Yeah. Can I read this sentence from this other page that I didn't get to read because I find it really funny
Sure.
and I want to share it? So, okay, this is a throwback to when we were talking about security detail.
Okay.
How, like, there's not a marshal in town making sure that you're okay. It's only for really important events. I wrote, it's super expensive. And if Gerald Schur wasn't willing to change school records, I cannot imagine he was all gung-ho about a Secret Service type beat, following every domesticated soprano around like a little pack of pilot fish.
That's beautiful.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I'm a writer. I went to USC. I got my MFA. I don't think I've ever mentioned that on this podcast before. I don't talk about it a lot.
You don't. That's wonderful. I wonder if any of this witness protection stuff is going to come up while we're watching The Sopranos.
I'm sure it will. I wonder if that's how it ends, actually.
Maybe,
With
yeah,
Tony going into, like, he's
goes
all
into
like,
witness-
I would never defect. I'm with these fucking Henry Hill types. And then he goes into witness protection
That's interesting.
to save his family.
I know.
Yeah.
We'll have to find out.
I wonder.
Well, anyway, thank you for sharing your rabbit hole.
You're so welcome. Thank you for letting me ramble
That was very interesting.
about the Italians, too.
Of course, every day of the week. All right. Well,
I'm Lindsay,
and I'm Connor.
and I told you this would be interesting.
Thank you so much for sharing this with us, Lindsay.
Yeah, no problem. We'll see you next week when Connor's going to have a hot, spicy new rabbit hole.
We'll see.
Where are
We'll
we
see.
going next week? Give us a little tidbit.
I don't even know yet. We're gonna figure it out.
We're a procrastinating podcast.
We are.
Yeah.
We are. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Bye.